eating wine and drinking it all. It's kind of a funny saying, I don't remember. There it is, it's going.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you today?
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, what's been going on with you?
Well, I've got some major family drama going on. My grandfather died at the end of July. And when he passed away, it was kind of like we knew it was coming. He had leukemia. He was diagnosed in April. So it was actually a really fast go.
Mm-hmm.
But he was diagnosed, decided to go through chemotherapy, which a lot of us disagreed with. Like a good majority of the family disagreed with it, and then the people that really agreed with it pushed for it. It was acute leukemia, acute myeloma leukemia, and there is no treatment for that. Like literally, the longest anyone's lived once they've been diagnosed was a year. That's it. It's just because it's so advanced that there's nothing that they can do. So chemotherapy is literally just to prolong your life, but the way I look at it is it's just an ugly way of prolonging your life. It's just a lot of pain and a lot of just really awful times, and you're frequently in the hospital. It's just not good. So we all went back in June to see him and to kind of have like a week with the whole family and visit, and we took him to the hospital a bunch, and things were okay. I could tell there was a lot of tension amongst the kids. When I mean the kids, I mean like my mom and then my aunt and my uncles. There's 4 in total.
Oh, okay.
Half of them were on the pro chemo, half of them were on the just let him live out his life the way he is. So, and my mom was one of those.
I'm sorry, your mom was one that wanted him to live his life out without the chemo?
Right. So when he passed away, there's always been a rub between my aunt and my mom. They're Irish twins. My aunt was born in January, my mother in December of the same year. My poor grandmother, good Lord. So they're Irish twins, and there's just been some jealousy issues there between my aunt who's older and my mom who's younger. My mom has always been the taller, thinner, successful one, and by successful I mean she got like her high school diploma, things like that. Mm-hmm. She's only had one marriage, and it's not that her life hasn't been hard, because my mom's life has been really hard. There's a lot of times that I think that she should have left my dad a long time ago, and I know that I'm kind of all over the board right now, but I'm kind of just giving you the background on it. And then my aunt has been married 3 times, which is fine and dandy. It's great, whatever. I mean, I've been married twice. I don't have a lot of room to talk, but she's married the same guy. Her first and third husband are the same guy, which is kind of interesting. She never got her high school diploma. She really relies on the Christian faith, but I think it's more of a production than an actual connection. And I know that's not my place to judge, but it's, she kind of shows this on the regular, that it's kind of for show and not for her own personal spirituality. But everything she does is... Go ahead. No, you're good.
So you feel like it's not genuine, her relationship with God does not appear genuine to you? Is that what you mean?
It is. I just kind of feel like it's a crutch for her to do whatever she wants. And she's even told my mom, like, oh, I can swear and I can do all this stuff because Christians are allowed breaks from Christianity, which I find to be really funny, because I just think it's a terrible misrepresentation of what to be a sinner is, and then to take a break from Christianity to do whatever the hell you want. Like, that's kind of a big difference. Anyways, to kind of give you that background, when my grandfather died, his wife Jerry had offered my mom one of 2 necklaces. She was giving one to my aunt and one to my mom. My mom picked one, and then she wore it, and then my aunt got to the house, and she was furious when she saw it on my mother. Furious, because she didn't get to pick first. And she insists it's because she thought that all the kids were going to separate his stuff together as a group. but then like all the boys have already taken like all of his hunting and fishing stuff, and like so stuff is already starting to be divided, and why it was so focused on my mother with a necklace doesn't really make sense to me. So at the funeral, like there was like a whole blowout between the two of them, and my mom got mad at her. My aunt's really passive aggressive, so she'll say stuff to you, and it's just kind of mean and nasty, but not like enough to where you are just gonna fight with her. You just kind of placate through the whole thing and get it done, so that you don't have to deal with her. Inevitably, is what happens. And it was a nasty fight the day before the funeral, and I'm pretty sure my mom called her a bitch in front of the whole family, and it got really ugly, and now the family's very divided.
And they kind of were before, right? Or was the strain just with your mom and her sister?
Just with my mom and her sister.
Okay.
And now it's like a clear division. And it's really sad, first off, that it's taken 50 years for it to get to this progression level, but it's sad that that the funeral was the catalyst to the entire thing. So about a month after he passed away, my cousin Sarita and I, these are now the daughters. So I am my mom's daughter, and then she's my aunt's daughter. We do a girls' trip every year, and it's her and I and a bunch of her friends from California, and we usually go somewhere in California to do it, and it's really fun. She had brought up the situation with me, like, hey, what's going on with our moms? And we kind of talked a little bit about it. And I said some things to her, and she basically went back to her mom and completely misrepresented everything that I said to her, which was so offensive. It was so offensive. It ended up being like this little circle of everybody was offended.
Oh, wow.
And it got really, really ugly. And now it's to the point where my mom doesn't want to speak to her sister ever again. And I'm kind of done with it all because I'm done with the drama. I find it exhausting, emotionally draining, and something that I don't feel like I have to partake in any longer. I love them, they're my family, but I just don't know I don't know if it's right for me to fully separate myself like I want to.
You're having a hard time deciding how exactly to handle it, basically.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Because, like, my cousin has been the one person, like, I could confide in, and I could really trust, and I love her, and we've been really close. I was her maid of honor at her wedding last year, and I feel like she was so overwhelmingly protective of her mother and so insulting to my parents, that it made me kind of realize that she's just not who I thought she was. The argument that we had last Sunday was rough. It was really, 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 really rough. And I don't really drink. I don't really party. And she really does. It's really her thing. And so when we had some of these discussions, she'd been drinking. And so I can't help but think that maybe she misunderstood because she took her own thought process. Because I remember her asking me some of the things that she misconstrued. And I said, no, I said this instead. And she, completely went back anyways and told them her own opinion on the situation. And it just kind of, it turned it into a big old fire. It was like a little campfire, and then it spread, across the entire Rocky Mountains.
Is what I feel. Wildfire.
Right.
All across.
Right.
Sorry, that's the sound.
No, it's exactly how I feel about it.
So I'm going way back to the beginning, but I just want to see your grandfather, when this started, I know you said your mom and your sister, or her sister, have had issues, this back and forth, kind of the jealousy and things their whole lives.
Right.
And that's hard. I mean, that's, it's your family, and to have those feelings, I just can't, that would be very hard. I just wonder, did your grandfather specify, and I don't know that it matters, I'm just kind of curious, what his wishes were as far as how he wanted to? No.
He didn't even have anything prepared for his funeral when he knew that he knew he had just months to live.
Did he want chemotherapy, or did he not?
Initially he didn't. He was a very spiritual man.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that I was really comfortable with him leaving this earth because he had such an amazing relationship with God. Like, he was kind of my spiritual mentor and the person I went to, and he was an incredible man. I mean, he went from being like an abusive alcoholic to completely changing his life around and mentoring other people in the same position that he had been in.
That's really cool.
And with the entire family. I mean, he was really kind of adored throughout everybody, and he had his quirks and stuff, but he was so funny, and I miss him very much. But he was not going to do chemo, and my uncle talked him into it, and he kind of got on this health kick, and I can really understand health kicks because I like to eat really healthy, and I know that you feel better, and it can be healing to eat healthy food versus, Wisconsin fish fries every Friday night with fried cheese curds and, whatever else that goes with it.
Right.
So he felt like that was really going to make a change in my grandfather. So that, in conjunction with the chemotherapy, and he was preaching this to my grandfather the whole time. He's like, God's going to bring us a miracle. He's going to bring us a miracle, and you're going to be healed of this, and we're going to move forward.
So when this was going on, when you first discovered, if you could give me just a little bit of background regarding how you felt when you first found out about your grandfather and the fact that he was going to be dying.
Right.
Within the next year or so. If you could maybe tell me how that felt for you personally, without anybody else's thing, and then also maybe how you felt since, how you've handled the death, feelings-wise, and how you felt about it since, and where you're kind of at with that.
It's odd because I've been really consistent the whole way through. When I found out, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I really wasn't upset about it. I wasn't really sad about it. I was almost I look at death as a really exciting thing because I think that this life is so hard and so difficult, and then I know that the afterlife is nothing like this. And so part of me was really excited for him. And then the other half of that was really sad for my mom and for the family, because I know that it has to be different in losing a parent versus losing a grandparent.
Right.
And so I had to maintain that perspective too. And so I think, like, the day after he died, I was in my car, which I'm always in my car. I swear I should just keep a sleeping bag in there and maybe one of those handheld showers that you have on camping trips, because it is just like I live in my vehicle. But I was driving in my car, and I just started praying about it out loud. I frequently do that. I'm terrible at praying in front of other people, but when I'm by myself, I can rock that like a mofo. Like, it's just right there for everyone to hear. And by everyone I mean me, and God, and whatever spirits are listening in at the moment. But I talked to God and my grandfather, and I just kind of cried about it in my car, and I just talked to him. And after that, I was fine. I mean, even at the funeral, I really didn't cry that much. I cried a little bit afterwards, but it was such a beautiful service. It was actually one of the best services I've ever been to. And it was a Catholic Mass at that. And I'm so not Catholic at all. I go to Red Rocks, so I'm all about rock bands and not ritualistic stuff.
So as far as your grandpa and what happened with him, the circumstances and the death,
right.
You're, I don't want to use the wrong wording, but you're somewhat at peace. You're okay with that.
Totally.
You're not feeling any
no guilt.
upset about that or anything.
No, yeah, I'm not sad for him. I was really excited for him and that he was going home. And so, which is really odd because I've had a lot of grandparents die and I've never felt that way before.
That's good.
So I think that was good.
Well, good. I just wanted to establish that because I think that's kind of where it started, and it sounds like you were really close to him and loved him a lot. And I think
did.
That's precious.
It is.
So as far as the mother and aunt and your cousin, that's it's interesting to me because I'm thinking that first of all, I want to let you know so many people I don't know the percentage, but so many people go through that.
Right.
It's unbelievable. And so I know you said that right now, I'm trying to remember the exact wording you said, but you said you're kind of done with the drama. You're to the point where you're just like,
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yep.
And that's understandable to get, when all this has been fueling and this happens and she gets mad about the necklace and I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong. I'm just saying, that all these feelings have been within a family. It even hurts even more so much of the time. And I'm just wondering, so right now, this moment, when we talk about all these things, how are you feeling about it? What do you think about the situation?
I'm really disgusted with the way that they've behaved. And I'm not talking about my mom, because I feel like she's handled this pretty well, actually. But because I know them, I know what they're underlying. So I mentioned earlier that I felt like my aunt's faith is maybe a little ingenuine. The reason why I say stuff like that is because, like, the day of the funeral, somebody took the little wire stands that had the flowers on it that were around his actual gravesite, and left the flowers on the ground next to the grave, which is really unusual. But then again, it could have been from the people that worked at the cemetery, for all I know. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But my aunt called the funeral home and asked if they had taken them, and they said no. And she literally pounded her hand and she said, "May God strike dead whoever took those things." And I felt like that was such an extreme and irrational. I mean, obviously it was far more harsh than I just delivered to you, but mm-hmm. And terribly, like, unchristian thing to say. Like, it's about some wire like flower holder. It's like, come on, like, it's not. Right. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. But those are the kinds of things that that she does, and it just drives me crazy. And to kind of backtrack to that June experience when the whole family was there, she brought some of her grandchildren with her. We drove to Wisconsin. So they came from Phoenix. I drove from Denver. I stopped in Nebraska and waited for them for about 7 hours for them to get there so that we could ride together. I could take the kids part of the time and give her a break, and so on and so forth. It was like a 15-hour drive for me to get there. It was a doozy, no doubt. Yeah, it was like 15
hours in the car? Mm-mm.
Oh, good Lord. With children, like, who want to pee every 10 minutes. Like, I don't have kids, so I've never experienced that. So that was a unique...
Good learning experience for you?
Right, that children have to pee every 5 minutes.
Good test of patience. Did you get to see how much patience you have?
Surprisingly, I have a lot. I was actually kind of shocked, but...
That is awesome.
But she does not. So we got all the way to Wisconsin, and the older one, who's about 13, had been taking care of all of the kids. And so I decided, because nobody was really paying her any mind, because of the whole, like, he wasn't supposed to be that sick when we got there. And then he was that sick. And so the focus went from being on a family entity to taking care of him at the hospital and switching off. I came in and I took Aria out to breakfast because I felt like this girl needs some attention. She's been working her tail off to tend to the small children that are all around her. Someone probably should reward her with some one-on-one time, something.
That's really good that you were able to see amongst all of all the focus was on your grandpa, for you to see that.
Right.
Your cousin needed. Was it your cousin?
No, it's my cousin's stepdaughter.
So, a family member. I don't know the correct wording,
okay.
But like second cousin or something.
It's a really complicated family. Like, unless I draw you a tree, you're not going to get it. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I think that's amazing that you're able to kind of see that and do that. That's really cool that you can.
Well, that was my intention. Like, truly, was just to take her out to breakfast and kind of just focus on her for a little bit. She's 13. I mean,
right.
And teenagers need that. Kids need that in general. They need some attention. Her parents have a lot of issues. Her mother is a borderline personality disorder. Is really abusive, is really aggressive. There's a lot of issues. My cousin Nick was kicked out of the Army because CPS was called so many times on them because of her abuse and her lack of, attentiveness to the kids. It was neglect. There we go. Can't think of the word. She would leave in the middle of the night and wouldn't come back and would leave these kids to tend to themselves and feed themselves. It just was really problematic. So the Army kicked my cousin out. And so in this conversation that I had with my cousin this weekend, she accused me of taking Aria out to pry information out of her about my cousins so I could talk crap about them to the rest of my family.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm wondering, you said you're pretty close to that cousin that you, last Sunday you had a huge falling out with.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how does that make you feel? When you think of what's going on and everything in your background, how do you feel right now regarding your cousin?
That I really don't want anything to do with her, actually. I'm so incredibly insulted. She said to me that that this was how her mother felt. It wasn't necessarily how she felt, but that it looked really bad. And I kind of feel like if you think it looks bad, or if you think that I did that to pry information out of a 13-year-old, first of all, that is so low. That is the lowest thing I've ever heard. That you have to stoop to a child's level to gather information about their parents to do what? To use the information for what benefit? Makes no logical sense to me. So if someone thinks that low about you, about your character, why would you want them in your life? And that's kind of how I'm feeling about it, is that, I don't care that you're my aunt and uncle. I don't care that you're my cousin. If you think that I am that terrible of a person that I would utilize a 13-year-old to gain information about your family I don't even know what I would do with that information, then I really just don't want you in my life any longer. I'm just kind of done.
And I think that for your own well-being as a person, you said it. I can't count 4 or 5 times that you're done. You're done. And if that's the way you feel, then I think it's absolutely perfectly understanding that you would feel that way. And I think that it's good that you are you know where you are with it, and you know what your intention was, and it wasn't bad.
Right.
And things get misconstrued and miscommunicated all the time, or people get mad and then they build on it. And I think that you, I'm glad that you kind of know that. If you can work through that and figure out, you know what, I'm done, and if it's okay to change your mind. I'm not saying you will.
Right.
But, maybe possibly at some point you will, but maybe that is appropriate for you to be done. Because right now it appears that what's happening is just fueling a fire. If there's no fire to fuel, then
there is no fire.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that I'm glad that you came here and told me about this, because I think that it's interesting. It happens to all of us. It really, really, really does. And sounds like you're being the quote unquote bigger person, and sometimes we get caught in it.
Right.
We're stuck in it, or we start doing it back to the person. And it's good that you're kind of saying, I'm done. I'm glad that you are aware of where your boundaries are with that.
Right.
And like I said, if you decide later on, great. And I bring this up all the time, but it's really appropriate here. If for some reason you find that it bothers you, if it's, something about it, you feel like you want to say something to your cousin or say something to your aunt, I would write it down.
Right.
And I say this because it works for me. It may not work for you. You have to find what does. But journaling, if you are like, I really want to tell her this right now.
Right.
Write it down and save it and look at it the next day or a week from then. Or write it down if you have those feelings. It doesn't sound like you're having them right now, but if you go through that, bring them back and we'll discuss that together if you're comfortable with that, and kind of see.
I definitely did. I actually wrote out a huge nasty gram. Not gonna lie, it was really ugly. And my boyfriend took a glance at it and he's like, "So you might want to sit on that before you send it." And it was like, I will. And
Well,
I
good.
did, and I didn't send it. And
Good
so they
for you.
really don't know what my feelings are, and maybe they don't need to know. And I know that, and I know you said, like, it is my option to go back to have a relationship with them again. I know because I've seen it, that even if I go back at this point, I will pay dearly for the things that I've done and I've said, because that's how they operate. But there is nothing within that portion of the family that isn't paid. I deleted them on Facebook. Oh my goodness. They knew within 24 hours, which I find slightly creepy because that means they were stalking me to figure out that they had been unfriended. And, I told my cousin, I said, look, I'm not willing to have a relationship with someone I'm not willing to keep someone on Facebook. How do I word it? Sorry, I'm thinking of this. I said, I am not willing to keep a social networking relationship with someone who doesn't want an actual relationship with me. And she feels greatly that I'm going to regret that decision. I feel that because I've gotten so much therapy myself. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. Obviously with a really dysfunctional family, like we're just one big happy dysfunction, like all together. It's kind of like I don't know, something special. That's what it is. So, but I have done my best to kind of steer away from that and be a really healthy person, because that's what I want for my life. I don't want the stress. I don't want the drama. I want to be fully functional and know how to handle really difficult situations when they come my way. So, she's 31 years old. I'm 29. I feel like she feeds into the drama because she is part of it.
Right.
Like her being is drama.
And that's something you have to decide if you want to be a part of or not. And it seems like you've already decided that.
Right.
I hope that you are able to work through this. And I would love it if next week when you come in, if you would bring the letter you wrote, if you don't mind, and we can kind of go through that and see how you're feeling with all of this, if anything else has happened.
Right.
I think that it's important to be valued, and I don't think that you as a person or your intentions, sounds like you don't feel that way at all.
Oh, not with them, no.
So,
and I feel an overwhelming sense to protect my mother.
Which is natural for a lot of people.
Right.
And I want to say on a side note, you said you have a dysfunctional family. I think everybody has a dysfunctional family in one way or another.
I agree.
So I think that in a way, it's a great thing. It's very strange to say, but
it's your family, right? So you gotta like own it, and I certainly do. So I feel like it probably wouldn't have blown up this big had my mother not been attacked. Because she was so attacked, I just feel an overwhelming sense of absolutely drawing the line in the sand.
That's understandable. And again, those anger, I think you should write it all down if you get a chance, if you're thinking about it. Right. And then again, we'll talk about it next week. But thank you so much for sharing with me today.
Yeah, thank you.
You take care.
You too.
Thanks.
Was that a long one? Where are we at on time?
I think I started the thing and then I didn't.
Did you look at it? You might have looked.
Not at all. Oh, I didn't
Oh,
start
you
it.
didn't start
Isn't
it.
that weird? Oh, we're only at 28.